Hello, welcome to my Royal Quest Beginner's Guide. This is going to go over some general tips and tricks while you play the game and things that can help you progress through the game easier and make your life a lot simpler when playing the game. First off, it's going to be settings. Settings, graphics, it's going to be the very starting. I personally don't like playing full screen. I like it borderless and I like it with window without heading, brightness, middle, shadows. Shadows, you can have it on. It does make the world look a little bit nicer, but at later times in the game, having it off is better because your FPS does drop with how many players and how many skills and animations there are. Shadow quality, you could turn it up and make it look a lot nicer. It all varies on you. It's all personal preference. Sometimes you can have it on, sometimes off. Reflection, all of these are mainly preference. Effects, beta here is going to be the render distance. The farther it goes into the slider, the more animations you can see. As you can see here with these NPCs, at a certain point, their icons disappear because that's an animation. Same thing would go with portals in worlds, things of that nature. The next part will be grass. Grass would be the same thing. It's just saving you a little bit of FPS as later down the line. You do need every FPS that you can get with how many animations and how many skills do go off. The next tip would be the cursor size. This would change the size of a cursor, bigger, smaller. And my personal preference is always turning off the CPU optimization off because a lot of the times this will drop your FPS. As you can see, I have 198, but as soon as I turn it on, it's going to start dropping down to 183, 189, and it all varies throughout the game while you play it. Next thing would be interface. There's multiple languages that you can select: Russia, English, uh, Portuguese, and other ones, but I do not know exactly which ones these are, as I only play on English. You can turn off certain things such as like character, health, names, NPCs, available loot, rotate mini maps, things of that nature. I personally like having like the rotate mini map off. Adjust camera automatically, turn it off, show damage and all, minimum party interface, things of that nature. Make sure you have enable auto scaling. If you are having issues with UI, this could be the reason why. You can turn the enable auto scaling off and then fix your UI in that sense. Radar transparency would be how dark the map is, things of that nature. All varies on you and how you would personally like having your game. Same thing for quest transparency. On the side of the bar, you'll have quest, and if you turn the slider up, it'll make it darker. Next tip would be the skill bars. You want extra skill bars for your abilities and all your items, as you can drag many different items and abilities on there. You can turn on an extra sidebar and as well as an extra sidebar on the side, so you can have extra two here, and you can actually have a third here, but you have to have click this button here to get the third additional bar. If you do not, you'll have the two bars, which can be very important later on in the game while you're playing it. On the games tips, I would recommend just turning on the duels and things of that nature, as you can get annoyed of it, as well as show low level quests off. As the higher you hit in levels, it'll start hiding your lower level quest to a certain point, and once you hit 65, it hides most of the quest. Profanity filter, Smartcast AOE, you can have this in a certain way, however you feel comfortable with. I would always recommend playing and seeing how you like your settings. Things I would recommend you turn off in here would be the camera shake effect and things of that nature. For the hotkeys let you customize all of your hotbars on the ones in the middle and on the ones on the side, and as well as having shortcuts such as like catalogs, options, and things of that nature. Canceling targets and things of that nature would always help you out, especially if you're a mage. Mage is really important to like know which is your cancel target and cancel spells, as a lot of times there will be times where you need to move in an instant. You can set up your customizations with many different types of button combinations. As you can see, this is a side mouse button with Q, another side mouse button with Q, and then an alt side mouse button. And then as well as these have 1, 2, 4, 5. It varies on how you want to play the game. You can even have control alt side mouse button one and then Q, and then it will combine all of those together. So you can have some very intricate button combinations for certain skills. It varies all on you on your preference. As well as if you go down here, you can have more things of the nature of how to set up your gameplay. With hotkeys, you can actually have some very intricate settings depending on how your playstyle is. So, say For ratings, I wanted to have Control, Alt, Mouse button 4, and Q. It would save all of those button combinations and have it as button combinations. If you'd like to clear that combination, you would just click it and hit clear. But this allows you to have some intricate key combinations if you are a very uh, interesting player on how you would like to have set up your buttons. As for me, I like having like say button Q, button 4, button 5. It all varies on how you would like to play the game. It just plays so much more different depending on person, and it makes it a very interesting way you have your setups. So going on to chat, chat is a very important thing to set up when you can, because many of the times you will be playing the game and your chat will be flooded saying you have earned reputation for your guild, you have gained DXP. During this time, you can actually play and fidget with the many different settings that you have here, such as looting, miscellaneous, party search. I personally like having one with all the chats and systems of that nature, another one that just shows experience of some nature, another one just showing damage caused, other one would be the loot for my party and myself, and of course you can have it whatever way you'd like, healing, damage, and all that nature. And the last part is settings for sound, and that is nothing very special. While you're playing the game, things you want to keep in mind are going to be your stats. By pressing C, you'll be able to see your character window. On here, you can see most of your main stats. Every 10 points, you can hover here and you can see the bonuses that you get, as well as your crit rate. Your crit rate is not the 2.3, but if you hover it, it says crit chance of it. So 2.3 crit chance in this number form is 7.8 actual percent crit chance. I know it's not sitting in the game. It is a very little weird thing, but attack speed is also considered casting speed. If you will have a higher casting speed than another person, your spells will go out faster. And for extras, you can see a lot more in depth in seeing what extra information you can get, such as hit chance on certain enemies, and energy, health restoration, PvP resistances, elements resistance, and even race resistances, and as well as your loot drop rate, your attack range, and your movement speed bonus. Next tip is going to be backspace. Backspace is very, very crucial in this game, as your backspace is limited but not entirely needed if you know how to play with backspace. There's very high level players with high level gear that have the base bag and do not purchase any more backspace. When first buying backspace, it will cost you 9 reals. Once you purchase backspace, it will cost you a less amount of reals. To max out a backspace, it costs you around 1,000 reals. Uh, Once you purchase all the backspace, it'll be at half, so it'll be around 540 reals. It is not very needed, is there is multiple ways to go around it, such as the mailbox. You can send multiple messages up to 10 pages, and each page can hold up to 6 items per mail. So 6 times 1, 2, 3, 6, 6 times 6, 36. You can hold up a very high amount of items. What you can do is you can send it to another character, such as my other character name being Nova. I can send Nova all these potions and other items, and I can send it for 30 gold, and Nova can hold on to those mails for a little while in order to get more backspace. There's also going to be space in your warehouse, which can hold up a little bit of extra space if needed for certain other items that you cannot get off your character, as there are items that are personal and items that are account bound. Items that you should keep and I would recommend you keep are going to be items such as Ashkelon cubes and Crystal River shards, which I'll get a little bit more into in the video in a few minutes. And these are the main items that you would like to keep in your inventory. The rest of the items can usually be sold. And of course, other cards, technically, such as card of the so and so or so and so card. Sometimes the names are very mix and match, as sometimes there's like a boss card called Beastbane's card and things of that nature. But then this one's card of the Toad. So these are items that you would want to keep, especially if you drop these cards. These can be sold to players for a good amount of money. And one thing that I'd like to mention is that backspace isn't really necessary, but if you'd like to purchase more, you could always donate and get reels in order to increase your backspace. But be careful that this is character bound, as well as the account warehouse. All this is going to be account warehouse, and it's going to be bound to the one character, and the pricing will be increased incrementally, such as right now it'll be costing 50, then 90, then 190. but you can purchase extra space off the player auction house, as there are certain items called Norin's hyper bags, which will be increasing your backpack bag space, and there's going to be a Doe's warehouse, which will increase your warehouse bag space. In recommendations of what you should be increasing would be definitely be the loot tab first. It all varies on how much you'd like to go. I personally, for my main characters that I know I'm going to be playing, and I'm a bit of a hoarder of a player for loot, I max out my loot bag. Next up would be consumables, and then slowly increase a little bit into the crafting and a little bit into the equipment tabs. And that would be my recommendation for those loot slots. But again, be very, very careful and mindful, as it is bound to the one character and there's no way to get on another character. All right, we're on my hunter now. My hunter has an item called maple syrup. It's going to be for energy users. For mana users, you guys have mana channeling, but you guys can get some random food off for mana. But for energy users, we would purchase maple syrup, 300 energy over 5 seconds, which can be used outside of combat in this little area called Q Docks. Onto the right of our loan in the main city, you would go to the right over here. This NPC named Ella, she will be selling you some of the maple syrup for 30 gold a cost. You can use the maple syrup while out of combat, which you can tell if your borders right here. And in this section, you can also see your character is going to be taking a different pose when in combat, when out of combat. In PvP zones, you will be in combat for a much longer duration, so keep that in mind. For here, you can purchase maple syrup for 30 gold a piece and be able to have a good amount of food for energy while you're grinding. Personally, I like having them in my backspace of at least 100 to 150, maybe 200 at a time, as they stack by 100, and I have backspace to spare. So next up, I'm going to be showing you on how to pull mobs. It is very different on how you work with the system, as many people play this class very differently. For me personally, hunters, warriors, assassins would want to play things around corners. Corners are very important in this game, such as these mobs here. Grabbing them here like this. If say these mobs were ranged, what I'd want to do is play with the corner. As you can see, I'm hovering the corner side of here. You can kind of tell what the corner is for some mobs. Sometimes mobs can hit you around the corners and vice versa. But if you play around the corner here, you can set up where range mobs will have to go all the way here and they'll be end up in melee form. And then after that point, you can just go ahead and kill them. As you can just see here with my character here. And that would be a little tip on how to drag mobs. This can work with any level and any type of mob that you work with. Be very cautious though, as because of how this is set up, you will get at times where they will be standing right on you and then they will start spreading around in a part, but that is a part of. Another thing to consider while you're pulling mobs and killing mobs is be wary of debuffs that you can acquire while pulling them. Sometimes there is a chance of these mobs to apply debuffs, as here shown as red, and sometimes they can even be poison and slows. Any buffs that are in the little boxes that are in that nature are going to be buffs that you cannot remove, and sometimes you might even get buffs that you are going to be dots, such as this one here is bleeding. Be very cautious when you're pulling mobs, as you might not notice it at the very beginning because you're looking mainly at your character and the mobs, but you can sometimes see buffs here. Other things to be cautious of are going to be on your character itself. If you get debuff with one of those bleeds or an elemental such as fire, earth, ground, or even chaos like this, my character fidgets with a certain look, and you can see more or less what kind of debuff it is. Certain debuffs apply different looks and different styles, and you can eventually tell just by looking at your character what debuffs you will acquire. I will now show you how you can grab mobs and pull them towards certain areas and position them in ways that you would like quickly with this warlock that I am currently leveling. You can see here these mobs will aggro to me. I would like to have a little bit more movement speed than them so they don't keep up with me, as their attacks, once the server registers that they are in attack range, they will hit me even though I am outside of attack range. So it's always recommended to get grass chewing gum, which you can either farm or you can get it off the player market auction house. Same with treasure hunter elixirs. On here, I am going around the corner and I want to group these up all nicely in one little area. So what I can start doing is I can go up these stairs here I can go around this little corner and then place my spells here. And then now all of these mobs are going to try and go around the corner just like my character would, and now they would eventually die. This would work the best, especially with range mobs, as range mobs have to go around this little corner to attack you, so you would stand right here. It would come up the stairs, and you would be able to get them all in one little section, one little area together. It is very recommended you get a little bit of movement speed to outrun the mobs, as they can slow you at times, and it is something that you wouldn't want to do. Depending on the class, you could kite it a little bit and just be able to keep range, such as this. But it is always recommended just pulling the mobs with increased movement speed. As you can see here, I am slowed for 30%, which is a hefty amount, and it gets to a point sometimes where you end up being slowed continuously to where you can no longer outrun the mobs. If you start outrunning the mobs, you can just start running around a little S-shaped pattern and be able to start gathering them all together. And then as me, I don't need to run these anymore. I can just kill them here and be able to just deal with them now. If I had a little bit more mana, it's always recommended to try and keep your resources up, such as Warlock and Sorcerers need concentration, Hunters need focus, Assassins need cunning, and Warriors need fury. It is always recommended you keep an eye on your concentration or whatever buff resource that you're using, as it is very important, and sometimes you might end up going in too early and not having all your buffs or things that you need to hit at the same time. Another thing you should be considering while farming is paying attention to mobs in the wild, as some will be considered alpha mobs. As you can see here, this is a normal boar, but this is an alpha boar. Anything that is an alpha will usually have double 8 of their HP on average and will come with the special buffs. There are multiple different types of buffs on the mobs. This one is poisonous, as every first attack this mob will do will be guaranteed a poison. Other mobs are going to be reflect that reflect a certain amount of damage. There's going to be an increased dodge and crit chance one. Elemental resist, but will take more damage to your physical attacks, and as well as physical resistance, which will take less damage from physical damage, but take more increased damage from dot damage, such as poison, chaos, bleed, and things of that nature. There's also mobs that are going to be invisible, and I believe that would be all the buffs, if I am not mistaken. There's also, pardon me, there's actually going to be one more buff that's going to be considered a mobility buff. That buff will move at an increased rate of, I think, 50% or 75%, which will make that mob catch up and give all the surrounding mobs that same buff as well. If you do not take care of that mob first, it will become out of control, as all the other mobs will have increased movement speed and attack speed. When killing alpha mobs, you will get Crystal River Shards. These shards can be sold on the player auction house. I would highly recommend you keep them, as people need them for level 63 and level 65 gear. You need roughly 3 to 4,000 per piece of gear at the end game area, so it's always recommended you keep these and do not vendor them, and keep them at all times. You can head over here onto the sides of our loan. On the right, left, top, or bottom side on these blue markers, these are going to be called wanted. These are going to be showing you all the dungeons in the game. When clearing this dungeon, you will get increased EXP after killing the boss, and gold as well. All the dungeons can be accessible at all levels, except the very in-game dungeons where you farm your gear pieces. But other than that, most of the wanted dungeons are going to be able to be accessed since the beginning of level 1. It's just the difficulty of those dungeons will be very, very difficult, especially if you're there at early stages. But you can still get some EXP, and you will always be guaranteed their loot if you damage the dungeon boss. For the end game players, if you're new to the end game with into the Ranta section, a lot of the dungeons will be unlocked at level 60, with certain dungeons being unlocked behind a quest. The first dungeon's gonna be Lair of Information. You can just walk in and start fighting the boss in this little section of arena. This will drop you some loot for your level 63, 65 gear, but it's not guaranteed. The next up would be in Austin's Cave in the Wastelands. Right in here, there's going to be Elka's Lair, which you can fight him after completing a certain amount of quests in the threat section for the main quest. The next section for your dungeon, it's going to be in Battle Shores with Abandoned Warehouse, fighting Meat Chopper in his little arena over here. Now, we'll guarantee you some other loot. Oh, not guarantee you, but we'll give you a chance for more level 63, 65 loot. The next area is going to be going into Kabul, into Barlam Caves. Right in here, it's behind a quest though. But if you have a player that has a teleport right in front of the dungeon, you can actually get the teleport from them and then you can just head inside the mineral pit. This is going to be an 8-man dungeon, which is highly recommended. And you'll be finding the boss inside the center here once you completed this whole section of the dungeon. The next area is going to be right over here in the Hand of Frost, which is going to be Thingu's Shelter, which is going to be a 4-man. You'll have to run through here to the left right here, kill all the mobs here, get their little lever, come down through here onto the right here, kill all the mobs in this section, get the lever here, clear and make your way all the way through here to get to the boss here, and that'll be your last 4-man dungeon. The next one's going to be the Elven Factory, which is going to be another 8-man dungeon. You're going to work your way through here, make your way up to the first boss, which is going to be right over here. Once you kill this boss here, you're going to go up the little teleport here and make your way all the way straight here to the final boss, and that'll be your next 8-man dungeon. There's going to be another section of 8-man dungeons in Archon called Solo Manor. Solar Manor has 3 different 8-man dungeons, but of course it can be cleared at less members. Any order that you want to go into these does not matter. Once you have one unlocked, you have all of them unlocked. My personal recommendation is always do Solo Guardian of Oblivion first. You're going to go through here, make your way down to the left, follow the path here. And this is going to be your first section of the first boss. Make your way back through here, come through here, and you're going to make your way all the way to the next boss here, and that'll be it for that. The next one would be the Clan Mansion. This one isn't needed. It's mainly for quests, but unless you'd really like more loot, you can complete this one here. You're going to make your way through here down the middle, make your way up the stairs to the right. You're going to come over here to this little room here, clear all the mobs here, and there's going to be a little switch here. Once you get that switch after killing all the mobs, you'll make your way back here and clear your way around here, all the way to the Fueler boss. Once you go back here in Archon, this is going to be the final area. For the family crypt, it all varies on which way you'd like to go, but a lot of the times players will go down the middle and start heading to the left and stay to the left all the way to the very end until they get to Geneve. Then they'll make their way through here and make their way to Jean. After killing Jean, you'll come back, you'll go through here and kill Cthulhu. Make sure you get the switches for Geneve, which is going to be right here, it's a little side over here. And then for once you kill Jean on the little table, there's going to be a little book that you'll click on him after killing him, and you'll be able to continue on to Cthulhu. But be very mindful when you die here, because if you respawn and you're on the other side of the map and not near when the boss dies, you will not get any loot. So be very, very cautious when doing that. It is highly recommended that you have some way to resurrect yourself with either Elenites or with Rios, which you can purchase Elenites off the player auction house, and this will give you an instant resurrection for yourself. All the dungeons shown will be giving you all your endgame loot, as well as your recipes and your raw drops. That is where I have gotten personally all of my loot from, and that is where you will get most of your loot. Sometimes you will get items that are going to be non-personal when dropped, and they can be sold, such as, say, this gun. This gun was dropped non-personal and can be sold to another player. But say, such as this jacket, a lot of the times will be personal and cannot be sold to another player, such as this amulet as well. But if you go into here and we go into the market, into the clothing gear, a lot of the times you will find gear pieces that are going to be able to be sold, such as these recipes here. These can be sold to other players. And for gear pieces as well, they can be sold to players as well. But a lot of the times, like mentioned, will be personal. But it is a good way to see if you can try and get a non-personal item. As say you can get this helmet, make it, and then making it as an account bound item, which you can try and do it with some face accessories, such as say this one. If this was able to be used by anybody, then it would be a good face accessory in some sense to make it and make it account bound, kind of like how I have my rings here. And for endgame players, that's mainly going to be the way you would end up getting all your gear pieces. For gold, a lot of the times you're going to end up doing your daily quests, which are going to be here from Aranta. Once you hit 65, you end up getting an extra bonus of gold, which can add up very, very quickly, such as say this one is going to be 46,000 plus another 13,000. So you can end up getting another 60,000 in total. And with multiple daily quests, you can end up getting a few 100,000 to a million, if not more, at times. From say this quest alone will give you around 65,000. Next one up would give you another 65,000. It quickly adds up. And that would be pretty much it for your tips and guides for newer players that aren't familiar with the game. And in order to quickly see what is a daily, anything right here is a repeatable daily quest that can be completed many times, which again resets at 4 p.m. PST.